today we're going to use these pizzas to solve a problem. I have two children. One likes cheese pizza, one likes supreme pizza. My problem is the pizza parlor cut this pizza into 4 equal pieces, this pizza into 8 equal pieces, but the pizzas are the same size. But I have to make sure that both of my kids get the same amount of pizza. How am I going to do that?
Real world problem. We're going to start learning today about equivalent fractions. We're going to learn how to identify equivalent fractions, use knowledge of equivalent fractions to solve real world problems, and use technology to manipulate equivalent fractions. Let's talk about what a fraction is before we get started on our equivalent fractions. A fraction is defined as part of a whole or part of a set. Let's look at our two examples. On the first example, I have a whole circle. The circle is divided into 4 equal parts. If I want to know what fraction of the circle is orange, I would tell you 1/4 of the circle is orange because 1 part out of all 4 parts is orange. Now if you look at our set of flowers, I have 3 flowers in the set. If I want to know what fraction of the flowers is pink, I would tell you 1/3 of the flowers are pink because only 1 out of the 3 is pink. Let's learn what an equivalent fraction is. Equivalent fractions are 2 fractions that are the same or equal. They have the same amount. They represent the same amount. Okay, so look at my picture model. I have 4 orange circles. 2 on each side is half of that set. So I now know that 1/2 is the same thing or equal to or equivalent to 2/4.
Like the whole pizza, and I wanted to divide the pizza into 4 parts. It would take 4/4 to make 1 whole. So I'm going to use these fraction tiles to line them up to make them equivalent. Okay, so now to solve my problem, I had to have one pizza was cut into 4 parts, one pizza was cut into 8 parts. Okay, so if I give my child 1/4 of the pizza, which is 1 part out of the total 4, and then my other pizza was cut into 8 parts. Okay, so if I put 1/8 underneath there, that's not equal. Okay, but if I put another 8 underneath there, that is equal. When they become equal, they become equivalent fractions. That means they are exactly the same amount. Okay, so let's try another one. If I'm going to have half of a cookie, and I need to give half of another cookie that is cut into 8 pieces, how many 1/8 pieces does it take to make half a cookie? So I'll put 1 underneath there, still not equal. 2 underneath there, still not equal. 3, 4 makes it equal. So that means 1/2 is equivalent or the same as 4/8. Okay, let's do a couple more. If I want to do 2/10, I will take 2 out of the total parts of 10. And I want to know how many fifths are in 2/10. Okay, so I'll take my 1/5 bar and I will lay it underneath there. And I know that 2/10 is equivalent to 1/5. Okay, so now I can go to 1/3. And actually I'm going to make 2/3. If I put 1/3 plus 1/3, that equals 2/3. Now I want to know how many sixths it takes to equal 2/3. So I'll put 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6. So 2/3 is equivalent or the same as 4/6. Now if I take this part away, I know that 1/3 is equal to 2/6. So think about the pizza example again. All right, if I had 1/4 for one child and then 2/8 for another child, they would have the same amount, which means they would have an equivalent amount of pizza, or the same.
Tiles to look at equivalent fractions. So the first question is 1/5 equivalent to 3/10? If the fractions are not equivalent, what would the equivalent fraction be? So I'm just going to move down 1/5 to start with. Then after I move down 1/5, I'm going to move down 3/10. So here's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10. Is that equivalent? No. 3/10 is too much to be equivalent to 1/5. So I would take away 1/10, and now I know that 1/5 is equivalent to 2/10. Okay, so now we'll move into our next example. So now we're going to look and see if 4/6 is equivalent to 1/2. So I'm going to move down 4/6. Here's 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6. Now I'm going to move down 1/2. Is that equivalent? No, it's too much. So I will take away 1/6, and now I know that 3/6 is equivalent to 1/2. Now we want to look to see if 4/8 is equivalent to 1/4. So I'm going to move these down. I'm going to have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, to see if that is equivalent to 1/4. So now I move down 1/4. I see that that is not equivalent. I still have a blank amount here. So I'm going to move down another 1/4, and now I know that 4/8 is actually equivalent to 2/4. I want to know if 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. So I'm going to move down 1/3. Then I'm going to move down 2/6. There's 1/6 plus another 6 equals 2/6. Is that equivalent? Yes, it's exactly the same. So 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6 is equivalent to 1. So I'm going to move down 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, and then I'm going to move down my whole number 1 to see if it is equivalent or the same, equal. And the answer is yes, it is equivalent. Something important to remember is if your numerator and your denominator are the same, then it is equal to 1. Represent your homework. Your homework is to go look in your home or your classroom and find a set of models that represents an equivalent fraction. That can be anything that you can find that is either part of a whole or part of a set, and you can find that are equal and have the same amount represented.